right, welcome back, Building Winners. Today's episode, I wanted to touch base on pretty much how does ordinary people buy extraordinary businesses. Now, how that is done is by some of the research I've done is by acquisitions and buying businesses. By definition, a business acquisition is a financial and legal transaction where one company, the acquirer, purchases a majority of all of another company's shares or assets to assume control of its operation. It allows a buyer to quickly expand, acquire new technology, or eliminate competition. Now, that applies to everything in business, meaning that implies the big corporation, as you well know. McDonald's bought Chipotle, for example, and even though McDonald's doesn't really imprint on Chipotle as far as a business standpoint, most people know that McDonald's owns Chipotle. For instance, Google bought YouTube, same thing. Like Google's not, you know, encroaching, I guess is the right word, or is taking over, but it is the partner or parent company of this smaller company. That's why a lot of times you'll see in bigger companies how things are easily linked and integrated with each other. If you notice when you sign in, your Google account pops up. That's not by mistake. That's just, them integrating into the Google ecosystem. And those are just big businesses. With smaller businesses, it happens a little differently. Smaller businesses are small. So a lot of that integrating stuff is not necessarily and doesn't really happen. Most of the time, when people want to buy small businesses, they want to do that instead of, starting something from scratch. Now, why would somebody buy this business that somebody already has, already owns, doesn't have none of their personality? Why would somebody be willing to do that? Well, right here, you'll have, existing customers already. You don't have to reach out for marketing to get a client base. It already has that installed or already embedded into the company. Existing employees, existing revenue, and most importantly, I think out of all three is what you'll get is an existing system. Something that has been tried and true and something that just works. Let's just keep it really simple. Something that works, something that has been paying this person for years and years and years and years through different sequence of events. This business has still survived. The W-4s, the P&L sheets, that will all tell you how healthy the business is, and through, especially through a tax return, to see how, at the end of the year, how did that business do, So these are some of the things on why somebody would buy an existing business. Also, what I forgot to mention too as well is that when you buy an existing business, you're buying instant cash flow if you analyze it right. For most people that's listening, you're probably working a 9 to 5 and you probably hate your job like most Americans. But the way that the wealth and some of these ordinary people, just like me and you, are able to escape their jobs, their systems, their boss, their commuting travel, is they're finding a way to buy a system, an infrastructure that already works like an old machine that's been running for the last few years. And they're finding ways to buy that business, make small to major improvements, and to recoup all the incoming profits after that. Now, when you think, and when I used to think of who actually buys businesses, this was something that was hard for me to understand from a logical standpoint because, You need money. You know, an average business, and this is was something that I learned through my journey. An average business costs mostly around a little over $1 million. A good, profitable, long-standing business probably between maybe 500,000 and $1 million, for a small business. Um, I had found a laundry, not a laundromat, but a car wash. It wasn't even in great shape, and it was in the okay area. Had some nice, decent traffic, and he hasn't renovated since he bought it. Since he bought it from the original owner. Maybe that was like about 20 years ago, but he wanted $1.5 million. And I thought like, oh, I don't have no way to get $1 million, right? And automatically in my mind, I thought, oh well, I can't get it. But in reality, a lot of first time entrepreneurs, families, employees, veterans, investors, existing owners buy existing businesses. They buy, other people's businesses. It's not just a, rich man's game that people are playing out here. People are buying, other people's businesses because they want to put other people out of business. They see the cash flow. Or in that situation where I just told you about the car wash I was looking to buy, they find things that have, great value. The business could be in shambles and probably needs a new remodel, new system, but it's on land that is hard to find. So it all depends on what you're looking for. But people are selling their businesses left and right. So don't make the assumption that it's only for billionaires and private equity and Shark Tank investors. Everyday people are buying businesses every day. And I think this is the part right here I want people to understand is that businesses are bought by a collection of different things, but the average person um, is typically going to use an SBA loan. The SBA loan, if you don't know, is a Small Business Administration. They will give you about 70 to maybe, I've heard from different loan officers, 80% um, of the value of the actual purchase of the business. That is major. So pretty much, if you find something, they're going to loan you 70% of the value of the cost of to acquire this business. And then most owners would seller finance the other 20%, and then you come up with the 10%. Now every deal is different, but this example shows you don't necessarily need the full purchase price, the purchase in cash to buy a business. Which is true. Like you don't need the full $1.1 million. No one has 1.5 million anything in their pockets or in their accounts readily available. Not average people, not normal people like you and me. This is how people are doing it. They're doing it by going down to the SBA, going to the SBA website, filling out the paperwork, which is extensive. And I should probably make another video about how extensive this process is to apply to, just to apply. But this is how it's done. People are, getting SBA loans for 70% and mixing it up between the seller finance and a down payment, which is all doable. How do you know if this is a good business to buy? Some questions you should ask yourself is it profitable? Does it have recurring customers? Can it run without the owner? Is it an industry growing? Is the industry growing? Why is it for sale? These are just basic questions you want to get from the owner in the very first conversation. Also be mindful, you don't want to come off as, invasive. You want to try to, tell them their true intentions and respect, their privacy. Not necessarily their privacy, but you kind of want to be cautious and delicate with the situation. I've talked to a few different owners and they were reluctant to tell me anything. But they stayed on the phone, which means that they would be interested in selling their business. They're just not sure if they want to sell it to you. So, being, transparent in your request, I think, is the best start. Trying to see if you can meet them face to face and get to really know about the actual owner and the pain point. In sales, you always got to find what the pressure is. What is the problem? Why they want to sell, and see if you can help solve that issue for them. And that would be the best advice I would give anybody that's looking to buy or get into acquiring a business, is finding out that pain point. What is that problem that they're going through that you can help solve for them? Now, most of you are probably thinking about, well, Mark, that sounds great, but why would anybody sell a profitable business? Seller finance 20% of it, 10% of it to me, and why would they do that? Well, here are your reasons. Retirement is a big one. Most of you probably already know, if you don't know, that this baby boomer wave is coming to their retirement phase. A lot of baby boomers that have been running these small businesses really doesn't have a succession plan. Their kids don't want to run the business. They don't have a niece or nephew that's interested in running the business. They don't even have an employee that's capable of taking over the business. So they are literally bounded by the company that they started maybe 30, 40 years ago. So people are always, always interested in retiring and getting out the business. And then you have, like any other job or career, you have burnout. Your health could be, health could change, health reasons could change. Want to be closer to family expands, moving, new opportunities. There's tons of different reasons why someone would sell. Your job is to find that reason. And that is, in essence, the meat and potatoes of acquisition, how extraordinary people are buying businesses. And this is part one of this series. If you learn anything, please like and subscribe. If you didn't, you can like and subscribe to as well. Or you can comment and let me know what you didn't like, what you didn't agree with. And we'll see you in the next one. Take care.